Think of it as multiple streams of income within the one property. So if you've got a buy-to-let property, you've got one stream of income. If you have a void, you have zero income coming into that property. Economically, if we look at the market, we're in a position now where, according to spare room data, there are more people looking for rooms than there are actually rooms available on the market. In fact, an incredibly good win-win solution. This is where HMOs come in. An HMO room in this area might be anywhere between £800 to £1,000 with all of the bills included. In this video, I'm going to speak about HMOs and everything that you need to know to get your HMO business up and running. I'm going to give you the foundations, the principles, the ideas behind it. Why, first and foremost, would you want to invest in HMOs? There's multiple reasons why HMOs are an incredibly effective strategy. Think of it as multiple streams of income within the one property. So if you've got a buy-to-let property, you've got one stream of income. If you have a void, you have zero income coming into that property. If you've got an HMO with 4 bedrooms and one tenant is moving out and you've got a temporary void for a week or two, you've still got 3 lots of rent coming into the property. So that is a massive advantage straight away. Much the same as the fact that you're less likely, in my experience, to get someone not pay because of the dynamics of the household. But when somebody does not pay, you're still covered by the people that are paying. So it's a bit safer in that respect. And economically, if we look at the market, we're in a position now where, according to spare room data, there are more people looking for rooms than there are actually rooms available on the market. In fact, just last year, there were 489,000 registered HMOs in the UK. Let's just call it 500,000. By now, it probably is. Let's just call it 500,000. 500,000 HMOs. That's not rooms. That's actual homes of multiple occupations. So that's millions of HMO tenants in the country and not enough rooms to meet the current level of demand. So it's a great strategy. It's required because, let's face it, in the UK, there's a massive lack of housing, and this creates an incredibly good win-win solution. Why do I say win-win? Well, win for you, the landlord, because you're of course going to benefit from having an extra piece of income than you would on a buy-to-let. You've got all of the security that I spoke about from the multiple streams of income as well. But also it's a win for the tenant because they're going to be able to get affordable rent in an area that might otherwise be unaffordable to them. Right now, I'm sat in an area called Bromley. If I want to go and rent a 1-bedroom flat in the area of Bromley, I might expect to pay something in the region of £1,500 a month, plus bills. I'm looking at about £2,000 per month, potentially, as an individual. If I'm on the average salary in the UK, which is £33,000 a month, good luck trying to live there. You won't even be able to pass the affordability criteria to rent that place in the first place. So this is where HMOs come in. An HMO room in this area might be anywhere between £800 to £1,000 with all of the bills included. And so that allows you as a tenant an opportunity for affordable rent. It also allows you to network and get to know people as well. I've lived in HMOs. By the way, a lot of people don't realize this. I've lived in HMOs. I've shared houses with people. I think it's, nearly swore, flipping fantastic. Personally, it gives you an opportunity to get to know people. I've had people in my HMOs that have met one another, fell in love, and had babies, because that's how the world works. I feel quite proud of my HMO babies, in fact. So HMO is incredibly good as housing solution, very misunderstood by the wider public sometimes, unfortunately, and that is one of the downsides or one of the challenges that you're going to come up against when you move into the HMO world. Now, what do you need to know before you step forward in HMOs? You need to understand planning, you need to understand licensing, and you need to understand lending. So those are the 3 things I'm going to cover off. Before I do, you need to understand and define who your market is. Now, there's different types of HMO property. You can go and rent HMOs to professionals, which is similar to what I do in the majority of my properties. You can rent HMOs to students. By the way, there's pros and cons to all of these. There is no right or wrong. There's just different approaches, but you need to define who your property is going to be for and who your target audience or target market is going to be. Students, a pro, for example, for students is they don't pay council tax, so that's going to save you one of your monthly expenses. A con might be the fact that there's a bit of timing involved, making sure you get them in time for the term and you don't miss that opportunity to get students in the right time. So you've got professionals, you've got students, you've also got local housing allowance. So that's people that might be claiming benefits. That's another market for HMO properties. Then you've got things like supported living or social housing. So there's lots of different demographics, but you can't really mix them, and you need to make sure that you're following on from the demand. So make sure that you've got the right demand for the area. Anyway, back to our three things: planning, licensing, and lending. So number one, planning. The first question you have to ask is, do I need planning in this area to have an HMO? And the answer is, it depends. It depends on whether or not there are any restrictions within the area. Now, usually those are called Article 4 restrictions. Now, an Article 4 restriction is a planning restriction which removes, stick with me, removes permitted development rights and means you would have to apply for planning permission in order to operate an HMO in a particular area. Let me put that as much as I can into layman's terms for you. Usually, you can turn a C3, which is a standard single dwelling residential property, into a C4, which is a HMO for 3 to 6 people sharing from 2 or more separate households. And you can do that under something called permitted development, which means you don't have to apply for planning permission to do it. However, in some areas, they've implemented an Article 4, which removes those permitted development rights. It doesn't mean you can't do it, but it means you would have to apply for planning. Now, my personal recommendation is to avoid operating in Article 4 areas unless you're buying existing HMOs, because it can be difficult and a little bit unknown and a little bit drawn out to try and get planning in an Article 4 area. So the first thing you need to know with regards to planning, do I need it? If there is an Article 4, I recommend go elsewhere. There are loads of areas that need HMOs without Article 4. Stop obsessing over the areas that are in Article 4 areas. You know who you are, guys. You know who you are. Second thing then is licensing. Now, if you've got 5 or more people, you will always require licensing. It will fall under mandatory licensing, which means a license will be required from your local authority. I have to make a quick distinction that licensing and planning are not the same thing. They're entirely different departments of the local council. They often don't even speak to each other. They occasionally do, but they often don't. They operate independently and they deal with different things. And so licensing is making sure that you've got the correct amenities, the correct room specs, that the health and safety is up to a standard so that people can actually safely inhabit forget about it. Anyway, so that people can safely move in into and bloody live in the property. You get the point. So with licensing, 5 or more mandatory, always required. In some areas, there might be a selective or additional licensing scheme, which might mean that 3 or more people, you'll require it. So where do you find out this mystical information? Just go to the local authority website. It will always be clearly listed. Licensing, no stress. So remember with planning, I said personally I would avoid it. With licensing, no stress. It's very clear cut. Provided you meet the criteria, which you shouldn't be operating if you don't, then you will always get your license granted. They are black and white. It's a tick box. Do you have a gas safety certificate? Do you have electrical installation condition report? Is the room over ... insert local authority guidelines square meters? Is the kitchen big enough for the amount of people that you got? Are there enough bathrooms for the amount of people that you got? And all of that will be clearly laid out on the local authority website, so you can check that directly with them, because there is some difference from local authority to local authority. There is a cost to that. Now, usually a license will run for about 5 years and might cost you, from borough to borough, it's different, but let's say about £1,000, and then you'll pay a renewal at the end of the 5 years. But if you spread that out, let's say it's £1,000, you spread it over 5 years, that's 200 quid a year. You spread it over 5 rooms, that's 40 quid a room. And you spread it over the year, I don't know, but it's not much money in real terms when you really think about it. And it gives you a tick box. It lets you operate in a compliant way. And it also means that you have carried out the bits you're meant to carry out. You should have, speaking as an ex-firefighter, you should have adequate smoke alarms. You should have fire doors. And these things actually do save lives. Trust me, I know. The third thing then is lending. And if you're buying HMO property, you don't just go and get a buy-to-let mortgage and stick it on the property. You will need to get a specific lending product from a specific lender that deals with HMO mortgages. Now, in order to do that, don't just go knocking at banks and asking them if they can loan you the money. That's not how this works. Get yourself a specialist broker that deals with this type of lending. Don't go to your broker that you've gone to for your home or who deals with the occasional bit of buy-to-let. Go to a broker and ask them the question, how many HMO mortgages? Don't be scared to ask this question, by the way. I mean it. Write this down and actually ask it. How many HMO mortgages have you got for your clients over the last 12 months? If the answer is none, then move on. There are plenty of brokers that specialize in this field, and there are plenty that don't. You want the ones that do. They'll be able to get you the best product. They'll know the criteria for the lender, and they will get you sorted. The rates are actually all right. Speaking recently, I've just secured 5.5% on a HMO mortgage in a limited company with a 2% product fee, which isn't that far off of what you're paying for buy-to-let at the moment. So the rates are pretty cool. And that's lending. So the key thing there, get yourself a specialist broker. Of course, there is much more. I could talk for longer, and I do. Those that know me, you know, I deliver 8 hours training straight, and there's still more to put on the table on HMOs. But this is the foundation, the intro, the 101, the need to knows before you get up and running with your HMO business. Of course, you can always check out my HMO book. So we'll put a link to that in the description. And if you like this sort of content, then hit the like, hit the subscribe, hit the bell icon, and I look forward to seeing you some more. You're welcome.